Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Psilocybin Says. This is Courtney Rose.
And Derek Osborne.
We are here with PGT, Philly Golden Teacher
The
today.
notorious PGT.
Yeah.
Thank
Welcome
you
to our
guys.
show.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me here. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, this was courtesy of our friend and colleague Tristan Harris, who has been following your work for quite some time and has been a major fan. So I know he's going to be listening to this, having some fanboy moments as we go through.
Okay.
But which is awesome. You know, you've got quite a following, and as someone who has been cultivating, consuming, collecting psilocybin for more than I don't know, 20 plus years at this point. It's really wonderful to see the growth in this knowledge base and the expansion of the community around psilocybin. So I want to really thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate it. I get a lot of thanks for what I'm doing, and I don't know. For me personally, it just feels like my calling, my purpose in life.
Mm.
So that's kind of what I gravitate towards. That's why I do it. So,
Well, tell us a little bit how you kind of got in line with this purpose. What led you to sacred mushrooms?
okay. I don't want to I mean, people that have heard the other podcasts that I've been on. I've been on Psilocybin Tribesman, and I've also been on DMT World.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of reiterate this.
We've got a different audience though, so don't worry about repeating information.
Okay, all right. So, what got me into psilocybin mushrooms? Personally, for me, it was a big thing had to do with mental health for me. Mental health over the years of um, I've suffered from depression, anxiety. I believe I have ADHD or ADD. Anyways, a lot of it tends to gravitate to me self-medicating, and also I ended up with some substance abuse. But anyways, mental health was just not quite there for me. So I've tried going to therapy. I've tried being on SSRIs. I hated the side effects of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I tried, to get help to deal with my struggles, my mental health struggles. Um, so, anyways, I didn't like the SSRIs, and then I kind of started looking in to try and resolve this myself. And I found a TED Talk actually that kind of went across how psilocybin can help in terms of addiction, depression, in terms of that kind of treatment. And it kind of opened up my eyes towards it, and it made me curious towards it. So that's kind of what led me towards it. And then I wanted to try and get a hold of some psilocybin, and in terms I kind of learned how to just grow and produce it myself in that process. So that's what got me started down the rabbit hole.
Okay. How long ago was that?
2017.
Oh, okay. So we're
Pretty
talking five
recently.
years now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So how long was it after that you began your cultivation journey?
Um, I mean, for me, being kind of like ADD, I kind of switch hobbies, and I kind of hyper focus on certain hobbies once I get really into it. And then once I kind of, you know, found growing mushrooms as a hobby, I kind of was addicted to it. And I would say within like a year or so, or less than a year, I just started getting into it because it didn't seem that hard. Like for me doing the research on it, it just wasn't that difficult to do it. You just need patience. It's a lot of patience that comes with it. So I just dove right in, and I just explored it, explored what psychedelics have to offer in terms of mental health treatment and how it can help me. And for me, it's been life changing for me. So that's why I kind of gravitate towards being able to give back this gift that I've received
Mm.
from the mushrooms to other people as well, because I want to be able to help other people that struggle with mental health, PTSD, any type of mental health conditions. Like I mean, psilocybin might not work for everybody, but it works for some people. And if it works for you, that's medicine. That I believe, like it's natural, it's holistic, it's medicine, and it's just like it's this wonderful thing that God put on earth for us, and we just kind of overlook it sometimes, and just kind of realize that like there's way more to life than what meets our eyes or what meets our reality, and what we perceive the world as.
For sure.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's really appreciated to hear that perspective
Yeah, so
on
it's
mushrooms.
definitely changed it was a tool, I would say, to help me change my perspective on life, and it got me out of the depression fog. Like I'm in the process of self improvement at this moment, so it's helping me along the way, and I really like kind of owe my life to the magic of psilocybin. That's kind of what draws me to continue doing this, and it's turned my life around. So I want to continue doing this path if I can, but I'm just trying to help others along the way as I'm doing it as well. I mean, the more um, time I spend learning, I'm not like a complete expert that knows it all. Like, I'm learning at the same rate as everyone else. Like, so like growing mushrooms, there's just so much to uncover in terms of this field. Like, we just don't understand. We only understand like maybe like just a surface level, but like there's a whole lot more that goes into mushroom cultivation than we initially thought. So it's an expanding field, and I personally like being here along with the growth and the ride with it.
For sure, for
Thank
sure.
you. So tell us about your first experience with mushrooms. I'm really curious to hear about that first
Would
experience.
you want to know like my very first one when I was younger, or like my first one that kind of in the recent years where I've tried to help my mental health?
Let's hear about the one that stands out to you the most.
Okay. Wow. The ones that stands out to me the most personally are heroic doses.
Yeah.
For me, heroic doses I feel are the life-changing doses. They're very scary sometimes, but if you can learn to surrender and let go to the experience, it can be extremely blissful.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of equate it to like
Mm-hmm.
reaching a state of enlightenment. I mean, for me, mental health wise, it's when I hear in like the TED talk where it's like years of therapy within like one session. Like I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through it myself, so it's definitely changed my point of view. It makes me more grateful. It definitely humbles me, and I do appreciate the life that we have, and I think everyone should be able to do the same. But yeah, that's kind of my experiences that have been the most life changing for me are the heroic doses. I've tried microdosing. For me, microdosing is not for me personally. I find I get the most therapeutic benefits out of macrodoses,
Mm-hmm.
but microdosing for me just kind of gives me a little bit more jittery. It's hard for me to stay focused. So, like I said, it works differently on different people. Not everyone will react the same way to psilocybin. So how I react can be completely different how you react to it. So it's kind of good to just kind of explore and experiment to see what works for you. Like if microdosing works for you in terms of your depression, stick with it. I wholeheartedly agree by that. And just kind of push the threshold if you feel that you're comfortable with psychedelics, and then just kind of explore. It's just a whole lot to explore and learn in life.
It really is. It really is. So, what do you consider, or what is a heroic dose for you? I know McKenna, of course, talks about the 5 grams from
uh
everybody's got a
yeah,
different
yeah,
threshold and strains dependent and all that. But,
that's true. Nowadays, with the way mushroom cultivation has gone, there's a lot more potent mushrooms out there,
right. Mm-hmm.
and it just depends on the dosage wise and what variety or strain of the dosage that you're going for. Like golden teachers are kind of, in my experience, kind of very mild.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach that state of heroic dose if you take enough of it. However, there's other mushrooms that have more potency that kind of can bring you there on a lesser amount of dose, like
Right.
albino penis envy or any of the penis envy varieties.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you do? Like for you, what's a big dose of penis envy? What's a big dose of golden teacher?
At an eighth of a penis envy is already a big dose. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, I compare penis envies kind of like twice as
Mm-hmm.
potent as golden teachers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
An
So,
eighth of an ounce.
yeah,
Yep.
3.5 grams. Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5 grams or so is plenty enough. I think even 2 grams is enough to kind of bring you out there in terms of like really feeling it and kind of like having like ego dissolution that comes with it.
For sure.
I'm glad that you pointed out earlier when you were first speaking of a heroic dose, you pointed out that it can be very scary of an experience. And I love to use that as a point to just note again to our listeners how valuable it is to have someone that you trust that can help you out and reassure you and just make sure your physical needs are taken care of during any kind of uh, heroic dose with
Hmm.
mushrooms.
Yeah, it's so variable. But again, that's what I have found over and over through the years is that the more challenging the experience generally means the more beneficial the experience. So this is our first, I think, conversation that we've had with a cultivator, if I'm not mistaken.
I
Um,
think
I had a farm
so.
for a long time. I had a Magnificent Mushrooms was a brand that I developed in 2009, and I had that farm in Indiana until I was reported for psilocybin and was arrested. Courtney and I both, and then we moved the farm to Jamaica and did psilocybin work there. So I've got quite a history in cultivation, but I haven't been cultivating directly for the last couple of years now. And there have been so many amazing developments in strains and potency, like you've already pointed out. And I'd love if we could kind of geek out on some of that for a little bit before we go
Oh
to
yeah, I'm totally
before.
down for it. I've been following the mycology world for some years now, and I've seen the progress that it's made and like how close knit the myco community actually is.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible the community that builds around mushrooms, which is I think one of the most beneficial aspects of psilocybin is the bonding that it facilitates through shared experiences or through shared knowledge of cultivation. Um, but before we get into too much of the nerdiness of cultivation and some of the questions that I have for you, I'm, I'd love if you could just fill us in on your timeline when the YouTube channel came into existence, because that's a pretty big leap to go from I cultivate mushrooms for my own personal benefit to I've got a YouTube channel now with 100,000 subscribers.
Great question. I thank you for mentioning that. So I started the YouTube channel in 2020. It was right around the time COVID kind of had started, and it was actually August of 2020 is when I first uploaded my first video, and it was the Broke Boy Tech. And yeah, around that time is when I had experienced my first dabbles with the heroic dose. It kind of changed my life for that part, and it kind of lit my passion inside of me. It drove me to do what I did there. And at that time, when I wanted to get into certain hobbies, I personally love YouTube as like a platform to learn stuff. I really feel like the future generation is going to learn a whole bunch of stuff just based off of YouTube. They can become
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest, based off of YouTube and just what you can find on the internet nowadays. But I wanted to go into that, explore that depth of mycology, and there were only a limited number of channels at that time when I kind of got into the space of YouTube. Home Mycology has been one of them. He's been around for a while. I consider him kind of like the OG of the YouTube space. There was Arvin 47, 747 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, there's Easy Breezy. There's a number of people that kind of got into the same space. And for me personally, what I kind of look for whenever I try to like get into like someone that I look forward to on YouTube. I kind of just enjoy information that's kind of like straight to the point, very simple and direct kind of approach. And I didn't see too many people doing that, so I kind of just jumped in and was like, hey, I think I can create some videos to kind of fill in what I personally would like to see in a YouTuber that covers this. I don't want to waste people's time, and I just want to give enough value out there so that people can understand what to like to grow mushrooms. So when I first started, it was just kind of like a side thing. Like I did it for fun, Like I just experimented with different ideas. Like I came up with things that I thought was funny, and kind of like threw it together in there. And it was really just like a side thing. I never really expected it to really get big. Um, I it's crazy how fast the channel has grown since
Yeah.
I've started, and
Yeah.
majority of it was just me just doing it for fun. Like I just like to make entertaining videos and just kind of like throw my ideas out there, what I find pretty interesting. And crazy enough, it clicks for a lot of people.
What's your
It
Um,
most
was the
popular
right
video?
time, huh?
What's your most
my broke
popular?
boy tech video is probably my most popular. I mean that's the easiest way, in my opinion, to kind of get started into mushroom cultivation without having like a pressure cooker. You just need a pot, some brown rice you can get at the grocery store, and spore syringe, and that's all you need, and some tubs, and you can just grow mushrooms
So
that easily.
did you coin that term, broke boy tech?
No, actually, the
Okay.
broke boy tech came up by a user on Reddit by the name of Unemployed EMT, and he had written out a text post of the broke boy tech. In my opinion, he's the original person that came up with the broke boy tech, and I kind of just read his thing. I followed along and then kind of, decided, hey, let's make a video about this because I really think this is like one of the perfect ways to get into mushroom growing. You don't have much products, and these are all easy things to get. So that's kind of what led me to make that video, and I do credit Unemployed EMT in the credits for that. It's
Isn't this it's the same thing as the Uncle Ben's tech, isn't it? Or no?
It's similar.
Hmm.
Uncle Ben's tech kind of made it a lot easier for a lot of people to get into mushroom cultivation. And me personally, I do owe some of my, I guess, career into the mycology field due to Uncle Ben's. Because when I first started, I did the PF tech. The PF tech
Hmm.
has been known for years. And Uncle Ben's is kind of what reiterated the spark for my cultivation for mushrooms because it's like, oh, holy crap, this is just so easy. You just, buy a bag of rice and just inoculate it. But yeah, I got back into the hobby because of Uncle Ben's, and I've had some hit or misses with Uncle Ben's over the time, and it kind of what jump started my growth into mycology and wanting to dive in and kind of get more serious with cultivation.
So I have a little bit of a like an entrepreneurial question. Are you with 100,000 subscribers with YouTube? Are you able to actually uh, receive revenue from YouTube? Like, is YouTube paying you?
Yes, I do monetize my videos, so
Oh,
I do
you
Nice.
receive
How,
revenue from the videos.
you can
I
that's
would
do
say
that
great.
with.
initially when it first started, I was making a good amount of revenue. Um, Pretty much that's when the boom happened. That's when COVID happened and people got laid off. People were looking for other
Mhm.
things to do, and a lot of people got into mushroom cultivation as one of those hobbies that they picked up during COVID. And I remember like when that happened, out around the time I was releasing videos, like the prices of pressure cookers was just like skyrocketing because
Yeah,
of the demand for people
yeah,
like trying to like buy it in terms of like canning or growing mushrooms. And yeah, I just kind of watched the whole thing happen. Things have kind of like slowed down a little bit now. But I still think it's a growing field of in terms of hobby and kind of like understanding more about mushrooms and how we can be connected to Earth as a whole. Like it's just amazing to kind of look at.
for sure. I would have never thought you could monetize any kind of psilocybin content on YouTube. That's a big surprise to me.
Well, I want my channel to kind of be focused more centered around just mycology in general, just any type of mushroom cultivation, really. Like I'm
Hmm.
expanding into different types of
Hmm.
medicinal and gourmet mushrooms, and I just want to be able to just teach people to how to grow mushrooms at home, like whether they want oyster mushrooms or reishis or cordyceps mushrooms. Like for me, it's just my I feel my purpose is just kind of learn through my journey with the mushrooms and cultivation, and just kind of share my experiences and what I've learned along the way with other people that might be interested in the same path that I am.
Love that.
No, I do really appreciate the straightforwardness of your videos. You know, a lot of them are what, 6, 8 minutes, and you got a few that are maybe in the 15, 20 minute range. It seemed like I've gone through a handful of them. You know, most of the most of what I hear in terms of cultivation is a lot of stuff that I already know, which is where I'd love to get into digging into some of the deeper stuff that I didn't come across on your channel. I don't know that I have anywhere yet. Courtney pointed out that you were third place in the Oakland Hi-Fi, wasn't it the Hi-Fi Cup? Is that what it was called?
I was in
Psilocybin
fourth
cup.
place. Yeah,
Fourth
fourth
place.
place in the Oakland. I believe it was the Fall Psilocybin Cup from
Uh-huh.
Oakland Hi-Fi. Yep.
That's pretty. That's pretty awesome, huh?
Yeah, I personally did not expected that. But I did learn something from achieving that. In terms of psilocybin potency and kind of like, or over the years, it just adds on to my experience of what I know in terms of cultivating them.
So, can we
So,
talk about some of the big learning experiences or takeaways that you had from that? How to modulate potency and the chemical makeup of the mushrooms is, I think, going to be just kind of the next frontier in cultivation as we look at therapeutic application and being able to target specific kind of mental health issues or varieties of experience. So I'd love it if whatever information you're open to sharing around developing potency and the entourage effect, perhaps even if you have any information there, I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. All right. So in terms of potency, it's kind of hard to gauge potency on mushrooms sometimes. Just because each individual fruit will have a different amount of potency. Like no two fruit kind of actually has the same potency. So it depends on the density, the weight of it, and kind of what the genetics are behind those varieties. Certain varieties are definitely more potent than others for sure. And in my experience, varieties that take longer to grow develop more potency. So the penis envy varieties, enigma is also another variety that takes really long to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and that's won the first place in the psilocybin cup in the past. Actually, it was a mutation of tidal wave 2, I believe, um, and yeah, Magic Michael submitted that to the cup, and it that's what won first place. But like Enigma is very special in terms of like it takes almost like 2 months to like fruit it.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer it takes, in my opinion, to grow, the more in terms of potency that it can develop.
hmm.
Mm-hmm. What about substrate makeup? That's I have found substrate makeup to have a significant impact on potency as well. Do you have any input there?
Substrate impact. Yes, it does. The more nutrients you can pack into the substrate, the more you'll get out in terms of potency. Especially if you have healthy grain spawn. If you have a healthy grain spawn and you have a good substrate mixture with a lot of nutrients in it, it does benefit from that. But I've had successes growing them with just plain cocoa core as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't need additional nutrients, but the additional nutrients does help in terms of making them more healthier and vigorous and stronger.
Yeah, I feel like that finding that perfect kind of combination between strain and substrate is how we're like are the two main factors that are going to come together to really give us kind of the ideal scenario. But it's just to me again thinking about, we know that it's not just psilocybin and psilocin that are active indoles within the mushrooms. We've got baeocystin, norbaeocystin, epinephrine. There's several other compounds that were recently identified by German scientists like 3 to 5 years ago, and so like I kind of I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to the day as we have a better understanding of how the different ratios of those compounds impact the strength or the qualitative nature of the experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we're definitely moving towards there. We now have the ability to test psilocybin. But yeah, in terms of other alkaloids that are in the mushrooms, they yeah, it varies depending on different varieties. And that, in my opinion, they're like no one trip is going to be the same as the other. Or no one experience is going to be the same as the other. It's just
Right.
what you're going through at the moment in life, and what kind of psilocybin does is just kind of amplify it for you.
Well, that's a huge, right? The qualitative nature of the experience changes so much based on inputs other than just the mushroom. You know, that's one of the things I try to talk about with our facilitators as we train people and to become better facilitators is to understand that everything in the setting is a variable, and then considering all of the mental goings on, all the things that have happened in the days and hours preceding that experience, it really illustrates how, to me, how dynamic life itself is. That every day we are we perceive ourselves in the same environment, everything looks the same, seems the same, but there are so many variables that shift, that impact us, that we're not aware of. And when we consume these mushrooms, it just highlights that to such an extent. I think it's fascinating personally.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
So I'm curious with the fall, back to that fall Philly Cup. um, I noticed that one of the elements in them choosing a winner was the phosphate to tryptamine balance or ratio.
Ratio.
And then there was another factor that I read that I'm forgetting, but I'm curious, like what was the reasoning there? Why is that a benefit
Good question.
to measure that down that ratio?
Mm, Personally, to be honest with you, I don't actually know. I haven't dove that deep into the field of testing for potency or anything of that sort. For me, my main center of focus has always kind of been around cultivation, really. At the core of what I do is just cultivation. And, I have explored my times with them, and, I kind of understand a lot more about them now. Um, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, nowadays, with things kind of progressing the way they are, psilocybin is, more readily researched now, and it's so nice to be able to have more research and more data come out on psilocybin in terms of like what they possess and how they can really impact our lives, really. Um, so yeah,
Well,
I'm really looking forward to the future of this field and to see where the growth sustains. And yeah.
yeah, the biggest surprise for me, I think, out of the psilocybin cup was that they seem to show pretty clearly that the stems are more potent than the caps consistently, which I had always thought the other way. And I think it was that first one that they did where that was published by Alan Rockefeller, maybe. So anyway, that was a big surprise for me, and just showed how much I have to learn.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've always said, give me the caps.
What about let's
Take the
talk about
stems.
this enigma for a second, because when this thing came out, I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? And now we've identified psilocybin in lichens. We've got cicadas that are dropping psilocybin spores all around. You know, for those who aren't knowledgeable on enigma, I know you talked about it as a morph of tidal wave two, which is what I've read as well. Uh, but what describe to our audience what makes it so unique? Because I think that this is, everybody knows penis envy and golden teacher, but this is something that is really an anomaly in the mushroom world overall. So yeah,
Hmm.
could you just talk about this specific strain?
Sure. Yeah, Enigma. There's always so many questions that come up about Enigma because they just look so weird. They just look so different
Yeah.
than what you're used to seeing.
Let me see a
Uh,
picture of this enigma.
Oh,
do you,
it's
do you have a picture? Do you want me to send you a picture?
you can just Google it and
Is
find them
there
everywhere.
is
It's
it
more
on
like
your
a,
Instagram?
yeah, he had some on Instagram, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's been on my Instagram. It's also on my website as well.
But they are more like a
Uh,
polypore. And I've never studied them up close. I don't know. I don't
no,
believe I've
no,
seen
they're
gills.
just a mycelium mass.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
They don't produce caps. They don't produce spores. They just grow. They started off as a mutation off of the tidal wave 2 strain, and someone was able to isolate that. And yeah, it just continually produces. Nowadays, in order to receive Enigma, because it doesn't have caps, because it doesn't have spores,
Mm-hmm.
you really need the culture in order to reproduce them.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture nowadays is being gifted out to other mycologists. I personally was gifted a culture of it, and yeah, it just kind of pays homage to the creator of Enigma because they don't want it to be for profit. They just want it to be gifted out as a culture. But yeah, it's a very unique strain. It's
I've got it up on the
it grows.
screen.
It looks like a cauliflower or like a underwater coral reef. Like it's just the
Mm-hmm.
strangest thing that ever happened, and
Yeah.
it's crazy how it was able to this phenotype was able to be isolated and reproduced out many times. Um, so yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it actually
that's
looks like a cauliflower mushroom or like a very young hen of the woods
yeah.
maitake
But
mushroom.
the thing is, what's so special about it is because it doesn't produce caps and it doesn't produce spores. You can kind of get away with just letting it go for
Mm-hmm.
longer. Like a lot of mushrooms, once they typical normal mushrooms, when they open up their veils and they release spores, that's towards the end of their life cycle, and they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to release the spores so they can continue the life cycle of mushrooms. The thing with Enigma is because it doesn't release spores, you can let it go longer. And that's kind of where my hypothesis came up with is like if you let it go longer, it can develop more of the compounds that
Mm-hmm.
makes it so unique. And so yeah, that's just my experience, my hypothesis on it, and it kind of follows true. But like I said, there's a lot more research that has to be done in terms of this, and I'm just kind of going off of my experience.
No, I would agree. I've had the same experience with truffles as well. The longer that they incubate, then the more potent they become. Uh, Seems like a similar kind of concept. I am curious though, what I've read in the last couple of years what some of the suspected evolutionary purpose of psilocybin is for the mushrooms, which the most recent thing I read was as an insect repellent. But I'm curious if you, in your experience, have any other thoughts on that. I certainly do.
Mushrooms as an insect repellent?
Yeah, that the mushrooms produce psilocybin as an insect repellent.
Like eating it.
Oh, it very well possibly can. I wouldn't doubt that at all. I mean, psilocybin mushrooms, because they produce the chemicals that they are through, I guess, natural selection, how they've evolved over times to repel predators and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a defense mechanism, in my opinion, that they developed in order to produce those effects. And I think when people ingest it, it does kind of come on as you're somewhat like poisoning yourself, but like not necessarily because it actually psilocybin is it's not fatal, but in a way like it's meant to be a defense mechanism for the mushroom to kind of ward off people from trying to eat it. Pretty much, that's
Well,
how
I
I
don't know.
feel.
I don't know if it would ward off people from eating it
Yeah,
because
but I mean like other animals or other
mm,
species, insects, as
yeah,
such.
I've done quite a bit of outdoor psilocybin cultivation actually, and there were very few animals that I saw consuming the mushrooms. Occasionally, a squirrel would nibble, and then that'd be it. Or slugs were pretty frequent. Um, but what I seem to have seen, and I'm just curious from other growers, you know, I've heard it postulated, but I feel like psilocybin is a powerful antibacterial. Um, and as we talk about, even as you're saying, like as the mushrooms age, they become more potent, or the ones that take longer to grow are more potent. It makes sense to me that that would be a survival mechanism, and maybe it serves both purposes. Maybe it's an insect repellent and antibacterial, or maybe I'm completely wrong. I know that I have an anti-inflammatory effect when I consume psilocybin. It clears out my sinuses. It helps. A lot of people talk about mucus drainage and whatnot. Um, and even maybe I've noticed where wet spot bacteria will come in, that the the mushrooms will bruise right in that zone, and it seems like it helps to prevent the bacteria from spreading, similar to what I've seen in shiitake, and
Yeah.
dissimilar to what happens in, say, lion's mane. Lion's mane is extremely susceptible to wet spot bacteria. It does not have the ability to resist it. But both shiitake and cubensis, I've seen where that wet spot sets in, they form kind of a barrier around the bacteria, preventing it from spreading through the whole basidio.
Wow.
Yeah, no, no, I agree. Mycelium just doesn't like contamination. It'll just grow away from it. That's how I looked at it. I mean, I've experienced the same through psilocybe varieties and also gourmet varieties as well. Even though something might be bacterial inside the sub, as long as the mycelium can kind of isolate it out and grow it away from it, it can the healthy mycelium can still produce. It's just if we can keep the contamination or bacterial spot at bay,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it's kind of what it does. But it won't colonize it because it just can't outcompete mold. Um, but they always grow away from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. I can't wait for the day where um, we get strep throat and our doctor prescribes us psilocybin for the antibacterial
Oh, you've got a
benefits.
sinus infection. You need 2 grams of
Yeah, what I
psilocybin.
have heard is that there's some new science coming out that they're able to extract the benefits out of psilocybin without having to give you that dissociative effect, like that trip effect. So you can still receive the benefits of psilocybin without having to go through an actual trip. So I thought that was really fascinating, like that
I'm
scientists
pretty
are able to come up
skeptical.
with that these days. That technology has progressed that far.
I
Uh,
don't believe it.
I'm skeptical. I'm
You must
skeptical.
trip.
Just having, I mean, I'm not saying that there can't be some benefit that comes from, non psychoactive experience with psilocybin, but in having administered well more than 3,000 doses of psilocybin, I have seen like that trip, just like we're talking about, the most challenging trips are oftentimes the most beneficial and most rewarding. And I don't know, there's something that does not sit well with me about taking this, like, the most challenging part about this experience, taking it away and just trying to like fast track to the benefit. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying there's not any value there, but you know, as a culture, we just keep trying to make things more convenient and easy on ourselves. And convenience is a fucking killer. Like it's not having the regular challenges and threats to our existence that I feel like in so many ways encourage poor mental health. Like if you don't have a challenge in your life, then your life is going to give you a challenge to overcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Makes
that.
sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed on your Instagram, you showed some pictures of capsules, and I think in the caption you talked about them being microdose capsules. So I was curious for you what you put into those microdose capsules. They look pretty full.
Microdose capsules. I mean, there's a variety of medicinal mushrooms that you can put into microdose capsules. Psilocybin can be one of them. Lion's mane is another one of them. Reishi mushrooms is another one. Turkey tail is another one. Cordyceps mushrooms are another one. There's a variety of medicinal mushrooms, and people do different blends of them as well, just to kind of try and experience the benefits of all the different types of beneficial medicinal mushrooms. So yeah, it varies really.
Mhm.
Some people there's like some people that try to you know, sell you like blends of different types of medicinal mushrooms together, or some people just do like extracts of certain medicinal mushrooms. But yeah, there's benefits to consuming medicinal mushrooms.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned kind of a that excuse me, microdosing wasn't that effective for you. I have also had quite a bit of struggles accepting microdosing as a I don't want to say valid, but I feel like there's a lot of hype around microdosing that I'm not sure is really all that deserved. And there are actually risks with microdosing that people don't talk about. This increased level of anxiety in your everyday environment is one. But I'd love it if you could kind of go into that a little bit deeper as to why you have felt like microdosing wasn't the most effective method for you to work with psilocybin.
Yeah, like I said before, everyone's chemical makeup, everyone's mental structure is made up differently. So depending on the medication that you're using, it has different effects for different people. Like I said, like microdosing might not work for me, but it could work for plenty of other people. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what led to the hype that came around it because it helped a lot of people. I mean, that's just the fact. It
Mm-hmm.
has helped a lot of people, especially with PTSD. And yeah, when you have that fact out there, you just can't ignore it. And for the people that are suffering from this, and especially suffering for a long time without having kind of felt some type of relief from their suffering,
Mm-hmm.
um, microdosing psilocybin is life changing for them. And whether depending on what mental health issues you're going with, different medications affect different people differently, and it's up to people to kind of explore their options and explore what ways that work for them, and kind of pursue it. And psilocybin is just one of the many different compounds that you can explore in terms of helping your mental health. So
Yeah, but so how? But for you, you said that you know microdosing wasn't that helpful for you, and I think you kind of mentioned it exacerbated some anxiety, and that's what I'd love to just kind of dig into a little bit because it's just
okay,
not something that's
so my
really spoken
personal
about.
experience with microdosing is kind of what
Mhm.
you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so my personal experience with microdosing, I would take them on an empty stomach. I would take 0.15 grams. And for me, I don't have much of a big tolerance to them, so I can kind of feel a subtle effect of 0.15 grams. And for me, on an empty stomach, it's just kind of when it comes up, it's kind of like a restless feeling. It's a jittery type feeling, similar to if I'm on a high amount of caffeine. It's hard for me to stay focused because of this. However, once the microdose starts to wear off, it's only like maybe like 5, 6 hours that it starts to wear off. The uncomfortable phases is like for me the first half, and then in the second half, as you come down from the microdose, you get a sense of calmness and a sense of well-being.
Mhm.
And I think that's also what you also get off of a macrodose as well when you're coming down off of it. And I guess for a lot of people, that can be beneficial for them. That sense of calmness and well being kind of gives them clarity of what they need to do and to progress in their day to day life. And that it's like I say, it works differently for some people. Some
Mhm.
people take it and it gives them energy, it gives them clarity, it gives them focus, and they're just so happy with the way they're feeling. And sometimes when it wears off, they kind of want to take more. So like the makeup of it and the different alkaloids that come with the different types of strains and different amounts and different blends of them affect people differently. So
Mhm.
I encourage people, that are dealing with these issues to kind of explore your options to see what helps you, what doesn't, and if it doesn't help you, don't do it. But if it
Mhm.
does help you, I say stick with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that's what needs to be brought into the conversation a little more. While there's obviously been an incredible amount of benefit to so many people through microdosing, it just doesn't seem like there's necessarily a really balanced conversation about it. It's just kind of this is the thing that will help pretty much everybody. But there is a certain segment of the population that if you take even a zero point 0.1 gram, you've got to set aside 2 hours because you're going to have some
Yeah,
discomfort,
yeah,
some
different
distraction.
people have different levels of their threshold in terms of how they experience the psilocybin experience. Some people are more sensitive to it, so they get a much more powerful experience. And some people just are, their chemical makeup allows them to be more tolerant of the chemical, so it
Hmm.
has less of an effect for them. So it's kind of exploring the different types and exploring the dosage to see what works for you. Is what I would say kind of go for.
For sure.
So, this is clearly such a big part of your life, working with mushrooms and educating others around mushrooms. And as you noted before we began, the importance of privacy for you, which is totally understandable. Hence the mask and the glasses for anyone who's just listening and not watching.
Mhm.
But I'm really curious for you if you are able to share this part of your life with people close with you, like your friends and family.
Yeah, people that are close to me that I consider, almost like family. Yeah, I share it with them. Yeah, they know me enough. I trust them to, you know, not say anything. And when anything comes up, I mean, I highly doubt anything would come up with them. But yeah, it's just like people that I trust to know who I am. I trust them fully. So I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
issues with that. In terms of family wise, I pretty much just have my wife with me as my close immediate family. And yeah, I'm kind of on my own, kind of a little bit distant away from my parents and kind of with the rest of my siblings and stuff like that. It's kind of how life is sometimes. As you're growing older, you kind of get more distant with your personal family. You kind of have your own family to tend to. So
Mm-hmm.
my personal friends that are close to me, that I consider close to me, they're in my close circle, and I almost kind of consider them like almost like family to me. But yeah, they you know I have their trust. They have my trust.
Is that challenging? Not being able to be public with your work.
Sometimes, yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes. Sometimes I wish I could be more public with it and just be more open and just kind of like, hey, let me know, let people know the accomplishments I've been.
Mhm.
But I know deep down when I first started the channel and go down this path that it's not going to be that way.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
I have to. I hate to say it, but be as anonymous as I can with it. And I stick by that
Mhm.
until the laws change, until things kind of ease up a little bit. That's just kind of how things are.
Yeah. No, it was a major issue for Courtney and I. We put a lot of love into our mushrooms, and we were growing a significant amount. Um, and it's not that we wanted to get noted like notarization or get
Notoriety.
no not not notarized but
Notoriety.
yeah, notoriety. There you go. Thank you for the work, but it is work we took great pride in, and I think it's just natural that when you work hard at something, you want some form of recognition, and you want people to see the face and say, "Oh, wow, this is beautiful. This person is putting love into this work." And it's really obvious that you put a lot of care and consideration into the work that you do and that you're doing it in order to help people help themselves. So, I just feel for you, man. My heart goes out to you knowing what it's like to, you know, be doing God's work, if you will, but
Yeah,
to
I like to think of it as I'm doing work in the shadows.
hmm hmm hmm
Like, I let the work impact on its own. I keep my
hmm
head down. I just kind of stay forward on my path, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing. I don't get too out there
hmm
with myself. I just feel I like what I do. I'm going to continue doing it, and people will follow me. That's great. I appreciate every single one of you people that end up following me and kind of like going along this journey with me in terms of um, cultivation of mushrooms. So,
Yeah. So what are your two questions?
mhm.
Personal favorite strain, and personal favorite method.
Okay. My personal favorite strain is my own kind of like isolation. It's called the Vapor. It's the
Okay.
blue ape revert. It's an albino penis envy revert that grows blue. What that means is it's an albino penis envy strain that grows like a traditional mushroom instead of its iconic phallic shape, sort of say. So that's my personal favorite to
Is it
grow
is it
because
is it spore
it's something
producing?
I've kind of isolated out, and it's kind of my own thing that's unique to me.
Does it produce
Um,
spores?
yes, so some of it does produce spores, some of it does not. So
Okay.
I'm in the process of trying to stabilize these genetics out so that they can consistently produce spores and continue on
Nice.
the generations. But it's just something that I've kind of lucked on to, and it's a gift to me from the genetic lotteries, and I kind of run with it. In terms of favorite process, I would say the modified monotubs is the best way to go.
Hmm. Dig it. Have you ever done anything with wood lovers or outdoor cultivation?
I'm getting into that at the moment. Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of wood lovers, I've grown out a variety of gourmet wood lover species. In
Mm.
terms of active ones, I'm still kind of in the process of exploring that. So I haven't quite gotten there, but it's a goal of mine to reach there and to be able to pass on that knowledge once I achieve it.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been a huge lover of the ovoids for several years and do a fair amount of transplant, mycelium transplanting out there.
So before I forget, we have a fanboy question,
Oh
which
yeah,
I cannot
Tristan,
forget.
we haven't forgot you.
Yeah. So Tristan wants to know, how would your life differ if you would have never come to sacred mushrooms?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Hmm.
Uh, how would my life would have been? I would just be working an ordinary 9 to 5 job. Um, Maybe experiencing like an existential crisis or something like that along the way in terms of do I want to be doing this for the rest of my life, and just kind of being like wandering around seeing what interests me and stuff. So I'm kind of glad mycology came into that part of my life when I really needed it the most. So that's how I looked at it. But yeah, if I haven't come across it, I'd probably be dealing with my mental health issues, and I probably kind of stay in the same path that I was, just continuing what I'm doing, just following the path, and just kind of like conforming to what's comfortable around me. So having the experience to experience uncomfortableness and growth from it is kind of what is leading me towards that direction.
Mm, great
Excellent.
answer.
What about in terms of when you set yourself up for a dose? Do you have a method that you follow, or do you just lay on the couch and see where it goes? How much of a setup do you put into your experiences?
Um, it kind of comes with the experience of the more you do, the more you know about it, and the more you prepare for it. So setting is definitely important. I definitely want to be comfortable. I tend to kind of clean my home
Mm.
prior to the experience, make sure that I get everything taken care of, all my responsibility taken care of, so that I don't have any worries going into it. And the method of consuming, I would say I would. The two favorite methods for me is personally, I would blend it up with orange juice and just chug it or make it into a smoothie. You can throw like strawberries and whatnot. It definitely helps.
Mhm.
And the other one is just making tea out of them, tea to just extract the psilocybin into the tea. And if you simmer it long enough, you extract enough that you can throw away the little bits and just kind of just consume the tea and get the same experience.
Mhm. Fresh versus dry. Do you have any opinion on that?
Fresh is definitely stronger.
Hmm. I
Yep.
love. Oh, there's.
Yeah, if you ever get fresh stuff, like it
Mm.
always is it's a magical time.
It is a
Hmm.
magical.
So you find the experience itself to be different, not just stronger, but
It's
different in nature
it's
at
it's
all?
similar. It's all similar in a way. The way we kind of experience psilocybin, like coming up, and there's like a peak, and then there's a come down, and there's a lot that comes along with it. Like the yawning is very common along the way. Um, But yeah, it's kind of the same for me. I would say if you're consuming it in a liquid form, it just lasts a little bit shorter than if you had consumed the fruits.
Mm, yeah. Still to this day, I had this one years ago. I took probably about it was probably about 80 to 90 fresh grams and put that in a blender, made a smoothie, and just chugged it. And within 10 minutes, I was in the stratosphere. It was incredible. I mean, I still prefer fresh anytime I can get that. And
Was that
it's,
your strongest experience ever?
oh no, no, it's ironically the strongest experience that I've ever had. And I've had, mega doses, 12, 15 gram range. But the strongest experience I've ever had was a 6 gram dose that I took. I had a buddy that was supposed to come over and we were going to split these 6 grams. He didn't make it. And I was like, oh, whatever, 6 grams ain't nothing. I'll take that. And it rocked my world. I've told the story publicly a couple times now, but I actually sweated blood. I was in front of the executioner and the aliens, and it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the next day, I got up. I just fell asleep outside because it was too much. The next day, I went inside to clean up and looked in the mirror, and I had actually sweated blood, which is a medical condition that has been rarely documented. And whenever it has been, it's been individuals who were in front of a firing squad or about to be hanged, where they were approaching sudden death. So it was but that was one of the most positive experiences that I've ever had as well. It just changed my outlook on life to such a degree that there's no going back.
Mm.
So yeah, I've been through the ringer.
It's one for the
I
books
feel
right
you on that
there.
one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there was one more question I was getting ready to ask. Dang it. Oh, regularity. Do you have a kind of a regimen that you go by? There have been times in my life where I did every month or twice a month or made sure every 6 months. It's not quite that right now because I've had so many experiences at this point. But I'm curious if you have a kind of a schedule that you go by in terms of dosing yourself, or is it just on an as needed basis?
For me, it's an as-needed basis. Whenever I feel that things are steering a little bit out of my control or getting a little bit crazy, then I would take a little bit, and what it does is it grounds me back to the reality that we're in, and it just helps me to get back to my core of what I need to focus on.
Mm.
Mm. Does your wife dose with you ever?
No, actually. um, she's been with me throughout the process. She's witnessed everything that I've gone through. But no, she's not really interested in any type of mind altering substances. Really, the way I like to look at it is she's just kind of high on life. Really.
It's a beautiful way to be.
Uh huh. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any more
No, this has been a great
questions? Yeah.
introduction to you and your work and our audience to your work. We do get a number of people who are curious about cultivation, so hopefully they'll go and check out your YouTube channel and your Instagram page, follow you on all the social stuff, and learn a little bit. Again, we're not encouraging illegal activity, but if you do, make sure you do it right, do it safely. There is always a risk associated with everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really more about harm reduction than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hope some of your many followers learn some new things about you
Yeah.
today during this interview.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
appreciate it. You guys had some great questions, and I enjoyed being able to share my experience along the way.
Awesome. We have
Awesome.
one more
Oh,
question
yep,
for
yep, yep.
you.
There is
It's
one more.
something
Okay.
we ask every single guest on Psilocybin Says. What does psilocybin say to you?
Mm, what does psilocybin say to me? If I can sum it down, um, just be grateful. Just be grateful and be mindful of the reality, the world around you. Um, we take for granted what we have living in this era at the moment. We have everything ever that we ever want kind of at our fingertips right now, and we get so lost and like absorbed into that psilocybin just kind of tells you to, hey, just take a step back from all that, take a step back from all the distractions, and just kind of be present in the moment that you have around you here. Just enjoy that, you know, you're this human being on this gigantic planet of like billions of other people, and like, you know, you can make an impact.
Mm.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy
True.
how psilocybin and psychedelics kind of like allow you to change perspective of life.
Mhm.
That's how I summarize it.
Awesome. Be
Beautiful.
grateful.
Gratitude is certainly one of the um, attributes that we encourage people to infuse into their life as much as possible. And for Courtney and I, it's central to the work that we do. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for having the impact that you're having. It is beautiful to see what one person can do for so many other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, for me, I would say, just it's always best to kind of just focus on the positive things in
Mm.
life and how things are going well for you. The more you do that, the more positive of a person you become. If you start kind of focusing on negatives in life, and that's kind of how you end up, becoming. You kind of like you are what you think you are in a way.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes, yes. All right, awesome, PGT. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to sharing your wonderful work with our audience.
Yes. Thanks so much. It's been awesome.
all right, thank you, Courtney and Eric.